Good morning, everybody. Let me welcome you to this session on promoting innovations in transboundary cooperation through water conservation tools. We are happy that you have decided to join us in this session. And this session will be looking at how to address challenges in transboundary basins to ensure sustainable water management. And we will also be looking at how the tools developed under the Water Convention can actually be used to address these challenges. My name is Kalisti Ndimugaya. I work for the Ministry of Water and Environment in Uganda, and I will be moderating this session together with Sonia Kope, Secretary for the Water Convention. And this session will have a number of interesting presentations that are highlighting the tools that can be used. I would like to request each of the presenters to take note that you have a maximum of 8 minutes, so try to stick on the time. I also would like to inform you that this is a silent session, so connect to channel 1 so that you can follow whatever will be presented. And we shall also be having a session at the end for questions. So take note of your questions, which you will raise at the end of the session. Without any further ado, I would like to invite Sonia Kope, Secretary for the Water Convention, take us through her presentation after making welcome remarks. Over to you, Sonia.
Thank you, and good morning to this session, also on behalf of the other co-organizers, which are Finland, Switzerland, Hungary, GIZ, GWP, and the International Water Assessment Center in Kazakhstan. So, at the global level, as probably most of you know, more than 60% of all freshwater resources are shared by 2 or more countries, and more than 40% of the world population lives in transboundary basins. That's why it was a breakthrough that among the Sustainable Development Goals in Target 6.5, countries were asked to implement integrated water resources management at all levels, including through transboundary cooperation as appropriate. And even more important was the introduction of a specific indicator to monitor progress in this regard. The indicator 6.5.2, for which UNESCO and UNECE are co-custodian agencies. And the countries so far have been asked 2 times, or actually now the 3rd time, to submit data and information on their shared waterism. And we have been very much positively surprised by the high rates of response, because we have gotten 129, or actually by now 130 replies out of the 153 countries sharing transboundary waters, which is quite a good result, considering that transboundary water cooperation is often considered sensitive and complicated. But the results, and I would say that also an innovative aspect of this indicator is that it includes not only cooperation on surface water, but also on groundwater, because groundwater has often been forgotten in the past, and there is so far only very little cooperation happening on transboundary groundwaters. And there are many lack of information still on transboundary groundwater. The results of the reporting indeed show that we are not on track to meet the SDG target, because only 24 countries so far actually meet the SDG target out of the 153 sharing transboundary waters. So we must accelerate progress. For this, we need innovation, we need capacity building, we need legal and institutional frameworks, such as the Water Convention, and we need coordinated action and more data from the ground. And actually right now, in 2023, we are in the 3rd reporting round. So all 153 countries have been asked to submit updated information on their transboundary waterism. And we have gotten already more than 90 replies. But still also more than 60 countries have not yet replied. So you can see the list of those who have not yet replied on the screen. And if any of you are from any of those countries on the screen, we very much hope that your governments will send the updated reports in the next few weeks to UNESCO and UNECE. So yesterday we started talking about innovation and transboundary water cooperation. As I mentioned yesterday, innovation is the introduction of new things, ideas, or ways of doing something. But it's also the use of such ideas in places where they have not yet been used before. And this is exactly where the Water Convention plays an important role. Because the Water Convention is now a global, legal and intergovernmental framework for transboundary cooperation, but a framework and a platform which is evolving to meet new challenges, a framework which enables sharing of experience at different levels, the global, regional and basin level, and which also fosters action at local level in basins around the world. And we will hear such stories from some of the speakers throughout the event. The Water Convention, actually, while there are currently 52 parties, more than 130 countries worldwide are actually taking part in the activities of the Water Convention. And while, as several of you probably know, the Water Convention was initially limited to the pan-European region, it was opened up in 2016 to all United Nations member states. And by now, we have 52 parties, including 11 from outside the pan-European region. That includes Chad, Senegal, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Togo, Cameroon. Then also this year have exceeded Nigeria, Iraq, Namibia, Panama, and last country to join just 1 month ago was the Gambia. And more than 20 other countries worldwide are in the process of accession, such as Côte d'Ivoire, Botswana, where we will have a workshop in September, Niger, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Zambia, and quite a number of others. And this is a very welcome process because we all know that we need to accelerate transboundary cooperation, and the Water Convention can help countries to accelerate transboundary cooperation, but also to improve national water governance. So the Water Convention includes the main principles of international water law, the principle of prevention of significant harm, the principle of equitable and reasonable utilization, the principle of cooperation, and it covers both transboundary surface and groundwaters. And as I say, it also has a first part which is focused on national water governance. Most important, I would say, for innovation is really the institutional framework. Because the Water Convention is a living instrument with different bodies which meet regularly, with task forces, with the Secretariat, which I'm representing. And in those frameworks, new ideas can be brought up. So usually one country, for example, brings up a new topic and then suggests to discuss this either through a global workshop or then, in most cases, development of publication or guidance tool. And then those tools are being applied on the ground, and later on experience is shared, and maybe the tools are even revised. And we will hear indeed such stories throughout the event today. And through this, for example, new topics can be addressed, such as climate change, which was brought up in 2006 by the Netherlands, or the water, food, energy ecosystem nexus, which was brought up by Germany in 2012, and that led to creation of a nexus task force. So currently we are in the program of work running until 2024, and that covers different areas related to transboundary cooperation, different challenges such as monitoring and information and data exchange, how to exchange data between countries, how to manage waters in an intersectoral way between different sectors, how to adapt to climate change jointly, or how to finance transboundary water cooperation. And in all those areas, we have lead parties, and we will hear from some of those lead parties today. And there's activities, as I said, at different levels being implemented. So there are dozens of different tools which have been developed over the last 30 years since the adoption of the Water Convention in 1992. And you can see some of them on the screen here. And you can find more online. We brought also some hard copies for those of you who may be interested. And they cover topics such as transboundary flood management, benefits of transboundary water cooperation, or disaster risk reduction, or groundwater, etc., or climate change. So to conclude, just to give one example of an area where we will not hear so much today in the session, which is climate change adaptation. So in this field, a task force was set up under the Water Convention in 2006, and then a guidance was prepared And regular workshops have been organized. And pilot projects, through pilot projects, we have been helping countries to develop transboundary adaptation strategies. And those experiences are shared in a global network of basins, with 18 basins from around the world, which you can see on the map. And through this, then we are feeding back those experiences into the global processes, such as the UNFCCC a conference of the party, like the upcoming COP28, etc. And with this, I would like to thank you, and we look forward to hear from some of the speakers about their experiences. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much, Sonia, for taking us through the innovations under the Water Convention. Indeed, you have highlighted the importance of innovations to accelerate progress in achieving SDG 6.52. And also you have highlighted the tools that have been developed under the Convention, and also noting that there is growing momentum for accession to the UN Water Convention. So thank you very much for the presentation. We'll now move on to the next speaker, and I would like to invite Anna-Stina Heiskanen, Director of the Freshwater Center, Finnish Environmental Institute. Anna will be giving a presentation on updated strategies for monitoring and assessment of transboundary rivers, lakes, and groundwater. Over to you, Anna.
So hello and good morning, everybody, also for my behalf. As we heard now the overview of the activities of the Water Convention, I have a pleasure to present one of the recent documents that has been prepared under the working group of monitoring and assessment and data exchange, where I have a pleasure to be a co-chair with the Senegal. So, what is this updated strategies for monitoring and assessment? It is aiming to be a strategic guidance, so as such it doesn't really include all the details of the monitoring and assessment systems, but it provides a stepwise approach how to do the planning of the monitoring and assessment in transboundary context and how to go forward with such development needs when the countries are sharing joint basins and want to also to do the assessment of the water quantity and water quality in these waters. It's also providing some guidance on assessment and data sharing and aiming to assist the countries and decision makers as well as the water managers and joint bodies of such agreements. So what are the innovations in this case? Indeed, of course, there's a lot of innovations going on in the field of monitoring and data assessment. But with respect of this strategy, it is truly providing a global experience. So there are a large number of experts that have participated. The document was prepared under the coordination of the UN Water Convention Secretariat, but huge number of experts participated. It also provides now an approach for the links between surface and groundwaters, which was not so explicit previously, as well as water quality and quantity as well, and ecology of the waters. It also addresses the issues of data management and sharing, as well as stakeholder inclusiveness, how to do that, which is very important. It's published in this year, so it's currently available. So how does the monitoring and assessment guidance support transboundary water cooperation, and how does it address the water challenges that we are facing currently in the world? First of all, it gives an overview of such approaches, and of course the magnitude of the water problems related to the quantity, quality, and ecology of the waters. It provides also a basin approach, and it includes all types of surface waters as well as groundwaters, and even those river mouths or estuaries that are under influence of the joint or the transboundary waters. It gives also overview of the new technologies and methodologies for monitoring and data handling, and as well, of course, sharing how to do that. For instance, dealing with remote sensing, automated sensors that are becoming more frequent, DNA, so how do you actually assess or measure the diversity or status of ecological status of the waters, citizen science, and of course data quality issues are very important there. It is stressing also, yes, data quality issues and harmonization needs. Added value and innovation to apply and to use this kind of a monitoring and assessment guidance. It is emphasizing the requirements of such sustainable monitoring and assessment. There is a legal basis, institutional setups, what kind of expert groups you would need to have, as well as adequate funding for the monitoring of the transboundary waters. And really the monitoring and the data coming from the transboundary waters and ability to share it, it's kind of the basis for the transboundary cooperation, because what you don't know, you can't actually talk about. So it is very basic and very crucial thing. Also emphasizing the participation of stakeholders across these basin areas and different countries and regions. Also gender inclusiveness is important or necessary, as in many areas, women, for instance, are not very prominently part of the water governance issues. Local and indigenous people, their knowledge about the water resources and water quality and ecology management of such transboundary waters. And of course, the need for capacity development is crucial. It also provides information about the benefits. So why to do this? Why to put the effort? Why to harness the finances for such activities? So it's really essential for preparing the policy actions and to achieve stated goals and targets, so what kind of objectives there are for the transboundary management between different countries. It is very essential to build trust, really trust, and to facilitate the cooperation, knowing that what kind of a data there has been shared. It's a common basis also for decision making in local, national, and in transboundary contexts. I see my time seems to be over. Yes? Well, just a few things about the next steps there. A dissemination and the next steps. So the guidance has been presented and promoted in regional workshops, hopefully also further in the Southern Africa or maybe even in the Southern America further. And now the next steps is that there is under preparation a good practices and lessons learned in transboundary data sharing. So there is an ongoing compilation of the report, and that is really to be finalized now before the next meeting of the working group on monitoring and assessment. This as well is based on extensive global co-development. There has been expert workshops and also provision of such case studies from a number of countries. And the objective is to illustrate real-life examples, so how actually the monitoring and assessment and data sharing is carried out in different countries, and what are the challenges, and if there are already good solutions, so sharing the good experiences across between the countries. Currently, it includes more than 45 case studies from all over the world. I think I will skip this because there's quite a lot of same that I already had, because I notice I've already overdone my time. But really, the key messages is that such data monitoring and data exchange is essential for good governance, building trust, and enabling informed decision-making, as well as following also what are the effectivity of the management and remediation actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, for the very, very interesting presentation. Indeed, you have clearly highlighted the importance of monitoring assessment, and we know that we can't manage the resource if we can't monitor it and also quantify it. You have also clearly indicated the benefits of global experiences in developing this strategy, and also the new technologies. Most importantly, integrating groundwater and surface water, something that has been lacking in many of our basins. So thank you very much. We move on to the next tool, policy guidance note on the benefits of transboundary water cooperation. I would like to invite Mr. Fera Ramoweri, Executive Secretary, Permanent Okavango River Basin Water Commission. Over to you, Fera, and you have 8 minutes of your presentation. Again, this is another tool that has been developed under the Water Convention and which we feel will improve the way we manage our resources. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you, colleagues, for coming to listen to my small remarks on this particular issue. As it has been indicated, this is a tool that we adopted or used from the perspective of the UN Water Convention, some of the tools they had prepared. This one is about assessing, identifying, and communicating benefits of transboundary water cooperation. And on our basin in the Okavango River Basin in Southern Africa, shared by Angola, Botswana, and Namibia, we took this tool and went on to do the assessment of benefit sharing that could accrue to the people that share that very important water course. And the objectives of this was to demonstrate the use of a participatory process to identify and assess the benefits of transboundary water cooperation, with key messages being that successful cooperative management of water, the world's transboundary basins, is key for achieving sustainable development goals. And this is a principle that we also subscribe to as a commission. This document is available online in our website, and it was published in 2019, and is both in English and in Portuguese because we are a commission where 2 languages are official. Now, the following are some of the identified benefits that, using this tool, we're able to identify through a consultative process that went through the region and the basin to identify some of these important benefits. Firstly, we identified economic benefits, which, among others, included the potential for expansion of tourism and the modest expansion of agricultural activities, including land use improvements in the basin. Foreign exchange from tourism was also identified as one of the benefits. Projects in the field of energy, irrigation, and water supply, as we develop, are benefits that accrue to specific communities in the basin. Reducing cost of natural disasters due to early warning systems as we develop respective tools that are guiding in this process. Increased value for plots along the river basin. Of course, if you know the Okavango Delta, which is the icon of that basin, is very strong attraction for tourism, with a lot of tourist operators operating in that space. And one of the benefits, therefore, that the country, Botswana, is gaining is through tourism receipts. There are also regional economic integration benefits. These are seen through investment in research, investment in road infrastructure, increased transboundary tourism, and this includes tourism coming across from the 3 countries, but even beyond. It also looks at increased cross-border trade between the 3 countries and sharing of experiences and expertise among the various technical people that are working in the basin. And these are benefits that the cross-pollination amongst the various partners or other parties that are working in the basin is very important. But most importantly, and what we see as the most important benefit was the social environmental benefits, where you get issues relating to improvement in terms of livelihoods of the population who subsists in this basin. And I can tell you the population in this basin are relatively poor people that normally there's high level of poverty. They are rural based, but you have to improve their livelihoods in order to ensure that they have alternatives that then make them better have a good life to subsist. Some of the issues that also were identified under social is the exposure and appreciation of other cultures from the three countries, and of conservation of biodiversity, and especially the delta ecosystem, which is now can be assisted in terms of protection by managing the basin in a way that can demonstrate the benefits. And of course, there are benefits that are normally missed, which are the ones relating to peace and security. In the absence of a platform like OCACOM, you'd actually not be able to have the necessary security and peace that you need, wherein countries could do unilateral activities that might actually raise conflicts. But through this, it is important to note that conflict can be avoided, increased collaboration can be assured, and of course, support from the three countries in terms of protecting the World Heritage Site. The Delta, as you know, is one of the biggest Ramsar sites, and it was declared the 1,000th World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 2014. So this are able to be achieved when you have a process like this and you have people that appreciate the benefits of being part of that system. Now, these are some of the things that I've just picked up to say how has the tool supported transboundary water cooperation. The participants in the benefit assessment identified many realized potential benefits, as I've just enunciated above, and the study represents a first step towards characterizing the relative importance of different benefits. And it's only through identifying and appreciating the benefits that countries can continue to support the existence of this kind of a forum for them to be able to benefit. Carrying out this process also carried out a benefit assessment, presented a major communication and stakeholder engagement action. Because as we said, through the tool that came from the UN Convention, we were able to do a very highly participatory process. The assessment enabled better understanding of the benefits of supporting investment planning in the basin, as was demonstrated in what we undertook concurrently during that time, a multi-sector investment opportunity analysis study that was carried out to assist the countries to plan better in a way that whatever they plan will not adversely affect the system, which is quite sensitive. Now, some concluding remarks. We were able to identify through this process that we need to devote more efforts in terms of analysis to communicate the benefits of cooperation at different scales and continue to refine the discussions on benefit of transboundary water cooperation within the COB. In terms of planning, we're able to evaluate how transboundary water cooperation objectives are currently reflected in national plans. The region has developed a regional basin plan, which is supported by national plans, and it's important to note how much of these are now being reflected as benefits in terms of planning. And this includes issues in terms of programs and projects, integrated findings from the process itself, and of course, these are important to make sure that they are disseminated across the board. Institutional development, the need to expand the capacity of the Commission to ensure that the tangible benefits of transboundary basin cooperation are realized as expected. And of course, issues relating to investment, to develop and implement livelihoods improvement programs and ensure that cooperative responses from the member states are also realized on time. We have also developed a basin conservation fund to further improve and increase the possibilities of making sure that there are benefits that accrue to this. I thank you for your most attention, and I will unfortunately be leaving fast because there's another program, but I can sit for the next 15 minutes before I can leave for the next session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Vera, for the presentation. Indeed, you have highlighted the importance of generating the benefits, also ensuring that the benefits identified, demonstrated, and communicated, especially to the communities, as well facilitating transboundary cooperation, and also have highlighted how the tool has been used in your basin. We want to move on to the next presentation. I would like to invite Zana Mautanova, Director, International Water Assessment Center. She will be making a presentation on the application of the handbook in water allocation in transboundary contexts in regional processes of Central Asia. Over to you.
I'm very glad to be here and share the experience of applying this innovative tool of Water Convention in Central Asia. Water allocation in transboundary context is one of the priority program areas of the Water Convention. At the 8th session of the meeting of the parties in 2018 in Astana, it was decided to develop the water allocation handbook. And the handbook was developed over 3 years through a broad intergovernmental consultation, which involved more than 100 countries, 70 international organizations, 20 basin organizations. And it was adopted by the decision of the meeting of the parties to the Water Convention in 2021 and published in 2 languages. Handbook is a compendium of topics and case examples illustrating the key elements of transboundary water allocation in various contexts. The document also includes a synthesis of existing practices, experiences and lessons learned from different regions of the world. It's designated for the decision makers of different levels, basin organizations and specialists from the water sector. The document is available on the UNSC website. You can download it through using the link provided on this website. International Water Assessment Center is an international cooperation center to the Water Convention that helps in implementation of the convention in practice. And IVAC has led a regional process for development of the handbook. With the financial support of Kazakhstan, IVAC implemented a regional project on sustainable water allocation in order to support and complement the global process for development of handbook. And this project helped to analyze the existing water allocation practice in the region and develop case studies for the handbook. The preparatory process allowed us at first time to gather 10 countries of Eurasia, including Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Iran, China, Mongolia, and Russia. During this process, countries developed consolidated proposals for the handbook. And another important aspect of this process was studying transboundary water cooperation in the region in linkage with water allocation and environmental flow. Equitable water allocation and ensuring sustainable water consumption are one of the most difficult problems in many regions of the world, including Central Asia. The growing demand in water caused by increasing population number, development of industry and agriculture has already created a shortage of water in the region. And the negative impact of climate change worsens the situation. The governments of Central Asian countries understand well that the current scenario may lead to the socio-economic collapse and geopolitical tensions. In this regard, they pay special attention to collaboration, dialogue, and the joint study of international experience, especially experience collected under the Water Convention, and for application of its tools. In November 2022, in Astana, IVAC, with the support of the government of Finland, organized a regional workshop for 5 countries of Central Asia. Its purpose was to assist in studying the international experience of transboundary water allocation summarized in the handbook, and to discuss the possibility of applying such experience in the region, and to determine the prospects for development of cooperation on joint use of water. This workshop helped to improve understanding and knowledge of possibilities and limitations of water allocation, linkages to broader alternative approaches, water allocation mechanisms and tools, operationalizing arrangements, and the way of solving disputes. It helped also to discuss the existing practice of use in Central Asia study cooperation experience in other transboundary basins, such as Danube and the Dniester basins, transboundary water cooperation of Finland. It addressed the issues, problems such as harmonization of different use of water, flow regulation, flood protection, and environmental flows. The awareness-raising event was very helpful in terms of discussing the current situation in the region and developing common approaches to improvement of cooperation in Central Asia. The main of them are listed on this slide. So countries agreed that for the better use of shared waters, it's necessary to develop transparent data and information exchange, automated monitoring and modeling, and develop the joint intersectoral strategy, and to use the water allocation handbook as a methodological tool for the development or improvement of cooperation arrangements in the region. So the last slide is here. I would like to show the main lessons learned from the applying handbook in practice. Handbook is a unique tool that helps to study global experiences in water allocation. It helped to understand better concrete steps and solutions on water allocation and allowed countries to understand their own context better and see more optimal solutions for improving cooperation. So it can be used as a tool for promoting dialogue on joint use of water, and application of handbook in practice can help to move towards greater water security and peace. So I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanna, for the presentation. Indeed, you have highlighted the importance of water allocation so that you have some for all, not all for some, and also have demonstrated how we have used it in Central Asia. I would like to invite the next speaker, Yumiko Yasuda, Senior Networks and Transboundary Water Cooperation Specialist at the Global Water Partnership. Yumiko will be taking us through the guide for the development of agreements supporting Pan-Africa water governance and international law training. Over to you, Yumiko.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Do I just press go? Okay, so today I have a pleasure to introduce about this practical guide for development and agreements and how we apply this into our Pan-Africa water governance and international water law training. So the practical guide for the development of agreement and other arrangement for transboundary water cooperation. Here is a guide that I have, a hard copy. The objective, this guide was developed in order to support countries in the design and drafting of the agreements or other arrangement for transboundary water that are to be very effective and adaptable and sustainable. And this was published in 2021. And it was mainly effort by the drafting groups that consisted of the different practitioners and academics on water. So it's not just international water lawyers, but also brought in perspective of practitioners and how this can be really practically applied and useful on the actual work, particularly from the non-lawyers' perspective. And then there are also a core group of editors who really worked hard on really shaping up the text. And then also there was a review group. So it was a big collaborative effort of numbers of people. And now this exists in English, French, Spanish, and Russian. And you see the QR code and the link. And if you're lucky, you also get this hard copy from the Secretariat. So what's innovative? So many of you may know about the transboundary agreements, and if you read the text, it's very blunt. It's not that easy to understand, and some of the languages are very vague. So as much as possible, we try to make it so that it's more easily to grasp, but also structurally easily to understand. So among many, many things that this guide talks about, we divided this into 3 core building blocks of the preambles and scope, which talks about the
the scopes of the agreement and scope, geographic scope and also objective. And then substantive commitments, which includes the equitable regional utilization, which is one of the key principles of the international water law, and no significant harm and so on. And then there is the procedural and implementation building blocks, which actually talks about things like the data exchange, the basin institutions, or dispute settlement, and so on. So we have these three key building blocks, and then underneath that, and then there's also supplementary building blocks that you see on the outside here, that actually are so many different, more specific topic-related, so to say, substances. So that it can be something like about the agriculture, it can be about the groundwater, it can be about protecting the marine ecosystems. These topical things are all related to different core building blocks as well. So for the readers, you can actually see this overview of what could this type of agreement contain, and then you can actually zoom in, pick and zoom into what you really need from this. So each of these building blocks or sub-building blocks actually are summarized into two succinct pages, so to say, that talks about overall description of what it is, and then what are the key points that you need to consider, and then examples of how such provision can be applied, and then their supporting resources. These examples are very, very important. I mean, if somebody says equitable regional utilization, how do you translate this into an actual text? This is very difficult. Like, the concept itself is not that difficult to understand, but translation of that into actual text can be very difficult. And I think over time, I think many of you, us, have learned that really understanding this from the example is very important. So how did we apply this into a Pan-Africa Water Governance International Water Law training that we have been conducting together with many partners since 2015? This training has been targeted to all the practitioners that anyone can actually apply to join this, and there's a selection process. We've so far trained up around 400 practitioners, and they are mostly from the basin organizations, the government, transboundary water focal points, or the regional economic commissions, as well as some of the NGOs, academics, and the youth representatives been trained. And through this training that we are mainly taking the approaches of combining the international water law, which we actually started the training purely as international water law training, and then we evolved into really combining this with other topics such as negotiation, and then really bringing this theory into practice through doing a simulation exercise. This is where we actually apply this practical guide. In this training, we also take this blended learning approach, where we actually ask participants to take this MOOC, the massive open online course on governance for transboundary freshwater security that we developed also together with many partners, and Jeff I.W. Dunn. We asked people to take this course before they come to the training. So we only have face-to-face or training for 3 to 4 days to maximize the learning. People come a bit prepared. And what is one of the most valuable part of this training is particularly this peer-to-peer learning, where we actually have the case example from different participants. And the participant, there's an alumni network exists on our Toolbox platform as a community of practice. These trainings has actually resulted in quite impressive, we are very happy to see these results. That alumni survey that we did several years after the training said that 90% of the participants said, yes, we have applied the skills that they have gained in this training. And then we have a number of examples. These are just some snapshots that I've listed here, but people have used it negotiation in the Nile Basin, Buzi-Sabe bilateral agreements, Volta Basin Charter, also the creation of the basin organization, monitoring of SDG 6.1, 652. So this training has been practically applied into these actual improvement on the ground on transboundary water management. So how did we apply this practical guide into the training? So we applied this in the last training we did in 2022, where we actually conducted this on the hybrid mode. And we do have this negotiation simulation exercise
on international water law, where we actually create the case for the hypothetical basin with the state A and B, and then we put the people into two groups, and then we actually ask, I mean, it's a conflictual situation a little bit between these two states, as a typical case of transboundary, and then we ask participants to develop negotiate on the substantive and procedural provisions of an agreement that can be utilized for this hypothetical basin. And they negotiate based on that. So utilizing this practical guide this time was really helpful, because people just did not talk more from, I mean, people, when they learn in the class, of course, just go straight into applying is a big challenge. But utilizing this structured approach of the practical guide was very helpful. And also to see some examples on these different pages. I think this was really useful. We will, of course, see how people applied this training when we do the alumni survey in maybe 2 years' time or so on. So this is just my presentation today, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yumiko, for taking us through this practical guide, the core building blocks and also the supplementary building blocks and also the key aspects, and also how the guide has been applied in the Pan-Africa water governance and international water law training in Africa, and also the evolution of the community of practice, and also how the participants have actually applied the training in their work. We move on to the next presentation. I would like to invite Simon Zibinden, Head Global Water Program, Water Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. And Simon will be taking us through funding and financing of transboundary water cooperation and basin development. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, moderator, and good day to everyone. Happy to be here, and also very delighted to sell you one other product of UNEC. It's this product or tool here, but I'd rather say it's a guidance. It's called Funding and Financing of Transboundary Water Cooperation Basin Development. And transboundary water cooperation is facing 1,000 challenges. We all know that. But if you would tell me or ask me what are the major challenges, I would probably say political will, trust, and funding. This publication is a pivotal guidance when you're up to explore and deploy funding activities in your transboundary or in your basin. So this is a publication that was developed by UNEC and also in collaboration with the Netherlands and Switzerland and other organizations such as AFDB, ADB, AADB, the GEF, IADB, OECD, and the World Bank have contributed all to this. So it's really a broad-based guidance that is really had the latest expertise in it. It is for basin organizations, it's for authorities, but also for donors who want to explore different funding resources. So please scan the QR code, or not my face, the QR code, so you can download it right away onto your mobile. But I want to focus in my 7 minutes that are left to me on a case that is actually a real case. And I want to tell you a story on the Gambia River Basin. The Gambia River Basin, a bit more in detail here, has this river basin organization, the OMVG, l'Organisation pour la mise en valeur du fleuve Gambie, which actually is a basin organization that exists now for 40 years. Very strong, relatively strong. It's 4 countries. The Gambia River flows from Guinea through Gambia and then Senegal, but has also some tributaries from Guinea-Bissau. So it's an important river in this region, and it's, of course, also the lifeline of millions of people. So what happened here? Actually, these organizations came to us and also to UNCDF and said, we want to explore new funding. How are we going to do this? And in our water community, we speak for years now, how do we get private sector aboard and also private capital? So the idea here is to develop, and once again I have to revert to this guidance, because this guidance was actually pivotal in this particular case. The issue here was we want to develop a basin level plan. So a series of studies were being made legally, socially, economically, hydrologically, and all they were put into a basin development plan. Really different jurisdictions, different countries, but a basin level. And then derived from this development plan, a investment plan. And you see here a bunch of, it's kind of an investment pipeline. And of course, the private sector would not be interested in funding, let's say, social services, just drinking water. But they might be interested in more economically viable, promising activities like in agriculture, also energy or other things. And now here comes the new innovation. Out from this development or joint development plan, the joint investment plan seeks to bundle a bunch of investment projects. And the novelty here is it's a development plan at the basin level, and it bundles a number of social and also economic investments in this area. And out of this, I don't torture you with all the details here, but the major thing is there is this basin organizations, they got together to have this development plan, the joint investment plan, and now comes in that we structure this through a special purpose vehicle. That's also a banking language, you can forget it right now, but it's a legal entity that actually owns this, and will try to issue bonds on that. Lending, sub-sovereign lending, municipal, county, and even state-level lending is done for 500 years. What's new here, it's across boundaries. It's through this special purpose vehicle that we'll try to fund or try to tap into new funding sources from the private capital. Of course, this will be also a de-risk with some public money, of course, because it's novelty and typically investors shy away from high risk. So that's why we go there. But the idea is here really to tap into new funding sources with the private sector. Few conclusions. It's a system-level approach. It's transboundary, it's transjurisdictional, it's multisectoral, maybe also intergenerational. It is blended financing, and it's targeting multiple SDGs. Balancing also interests, trying to leave no one behind, sequencing of investments, and it should be, at the very end, also scalable. Do we take risk in this? Oh boy and girl, do we? Yes, we do. But innovation without risk won't work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon, for taking us through the presentation on challenges and opportunities, and of course, financing and funding sources, and also the experience in the Gambia River Basin, and also how you have developed the basin-level development plan and investment plan with the key priority projects, and also the special purpose vehicle to tap into innovative financing. As we have highlighted, financing is one of the challenges in transboundary water cooperation. So we have to identify those innovative sources where we can get the funds. Thank you very much. We go to our last presenter. This is Fanny Zantai, Component Manager of Water Policy Team, GIZ. Fanny will be presenting. Oh, yeah. Okay, right here. Okay, thank you very much. And you'll be giving us a presentation on Niger Basin Authority Nexus guidelines and dialogue events. Over to you.
Yes. Thank you very much for this kind introduction and the very compelling presentations on the various water convention tools supporting transboundary water cooperation. Today, actually, I have the pleasure to present to you on behalf of the Niger Basin Authority a tool and guideline on the institutionalization of the water, energy, food, environment nexus approach in the Niger Basin and on cross-sectorial and cross-boundary project development. Unfortunately, under the given circumstances in Niger, it is unfortunately not possible for representatives of the Niger Basin Authority to attend this session today in person, but we have prepared a short documentary with Nandu Munkaila, the technical director of the Niger Basin Authority, who might be also following the session online. So basically, the documentary that we would like to show you is looking back at around 6 years of cooperation between the Niger Basin Authority and the German Development Cooperation Agency, in short, the GIZ, on the Nexus Regional Dialogues Program that is co-funded by the European Union and the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. So basically, the key feature of this program is to promote cross-sectoral and an integrated approach by fostering interlinkages between water, energy, food, but also environmental sustainability to reduce sectorial trade-offs and strengthen intersectorial synergies for more sustainable development overall in the Niger Basin. To this end, and with the support of GIZ, the Niger Basin Authority has developed a guideline on the integration of the water, energy, food, environmental nexus into the development of future programs and projects in the Niger Basin to achieve a greater impact overall. So the following video shows basically the journey of developing the first ever formal water, energy, food, environmental nexus guideline that has been approved and adopted back in December 2022. The full report on the whole work and the guidelines, including the key methodologies and the applied GIS-based tool, can be found in French and in English on the NBA website, or also on the Water, Energy, Food Nexus Program website, which is also displayed here on the slide. Back to that. And last but not least, also for any technical questions, I'm also happy to refer, of course, to the advisors and consultants who were involved in this process and supported this process, namely Professor Ousmane Saidou from the University of Ottawa and Claudia Ringler from the International Food Policy Research Institute, and last but not least, Robert Kranefeld from GIZ, who is also following this session online. Thanks a lot, and you can start with the video. Thanks.
The Niger River Basin is more than a source of water. For its 160 million inhabitants, it is a source of life. The Niger River supplies the 9 riparian countries: Benin, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Mali, Niger, and Nigeria, with water for drinking, agriculture, industry, energy, transport, as well as important ecosystems. 6 of them are among the poorest countries in the world. Millions of people suffer from food insecurity, water stress, and poverty. In addition, climate change, rapid population growth, urbanization, and armed conflicts intensify already existing challenges. In the spirit, 9 countries, 1 basin, 1 vision, the Niger Basin Authority promotes integrated and sustainable management of water resources. By implementing programs and projects, representatives of all 9 countries jointly support sustainable development in the basin in order to secure natural resources and the livelihoods of the people. The NBA's current operational plan includes 351 individual projects. Their implementation is challenging. Niandu Monkaila, Technical Director of the NBA, knows the existing difficulties.
Les expériences ont montré qu'en termes d'intervention sur ces différents secteurs a montré beaucoup de limites, notamment la création de conflits d'intérêts et de conflits de compétences entre les différents secteurs. Pour mettre fin à tout ça et avancer plus rapidement, l'ABN a choisi de travailler selon l'approche Nexus, qui consiste à mettre en commun tous les secteurs à la fois.
What is the Nexus approach? The Water, Energy, Food Security Nexus is an innovative method that brings the different interests related to the supply of water, energy, and food together. And like pure sectoral approaches, it embraces a cross-sectoral, coherent and integrated perspective. The Nexus challenges existing structures, policies and practices at the global, regional and national levels in order to rethink and connect them. This improves the use of resources, creates synergies and reduces sector trade-offs. Let's have a look how the new approach works in practice. Hajia Amina Tahiru leads a women's cooperative in the Department of Kolo in Niger. These women cultivate vegetable gardens for a living. However, prolonged periods of drought endanger their livelihood, and the old diesel-powered water pump used is climate damaging and expensive. To scale up agricultural output during the dry season, Amina's Farming Cooperative received a solar pumping irrigation system. With clean solar energy, groundwater can be pumped to irrigate the fields. In addition, the women were trained in climate-adaptive farming methods and sustainable water usage. By linking the water, energy and food needs, the project in Kolo has successfully secured these resources. Today, the cooperative is more resilient against external climate and economic stress factors. Back to the Niger Basin Authority. Since 2017, the European Union, in partnership with the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, are supporting the NBA in integrating the Nexus approach.
Visant l'institutionnalisation du Nexus eau, énergie et sécurité alimentaire dans ses dispositifs institutionnels, stratégiques et programmatiques, et cela au moyen d'une directive Nexus.
Based on an analysis of NBA's operational plan on synergies and trade-offs between the sectors, the NBA developed a formal Nexus guideline on the establishment of future projects in the basin. This has been achieved through a participatory process. 3-day workshops in all 9 basin countries were held, bringing together regional, national and local stakeholders and decision makers from different backgrounds. In an interactive Nexus simulation, members learned how to cooperate across sectors, understand each other's problem, and solve them together. Finally, the guideline document has been approved by the Council of Ministers.
Nous comptons désormais sur l'approche Nexus pour pouvoir avancer plus rapidement, plus efficacement et de manière plus efficiente pour les nouveaux projets et programmes qui vont être assortis du nouveau plan opérationnel et éventuellement du prochain également plan d'investissement climat.
Although this is just the beginning, the Nexus approach has already advanced the NBA's work. The vision is getting closer. A sustainable future for the Niger Basin.
For actually finishing ahead of time, which hasn't happened yet so far in the session. So congratulations to all the speakers for being better than me and shortening your presentations so that we actually have some time for discussions now. So I believe the presentation have shown the usefulness of, on the one hand, the global framework and platform at the global level, but the need to link it obviously to local realities, but also then to feedback, because, for example, then usually what also happens is that we bring back those experiences to the global level and sometimes even update the different tools. So for further, in order to take into account the experiences and lessons learned from the ground. But now I would like to open the floor for questions, comments, your experiences also from your countries and basins. So please raise your hand if you have any question. But as a first step, I would like to actually invite all the panelists to come to join me here so that we can basically be address the questions all together. And at the same time, I invite you to raise your hand already in case you have any questions or comments. No question? Is everybody tired? Okay, good. Can you bring the microphone? And then another one up there, yeah.
Is it on? Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. My question, thank you so much for the presentations. And, I'm from the Colorado River Basin in the United States. I'm from New Mexico, and I'm an indigenous person. I'm Hickory Apache. And as many of you know right now, we're right in the middle of renegotiating the operational guidelines for the Colorado River in the next 2 years. And I noticed that a lot of this, the presentations talked about the relationships already existing. I'm real curious to know how the relationships were created.
Thank you for your question. Let's take the other one, which was there a question? Did you have a question up there? Yes. Yeah. Can you go?
Yes. Am I audible? Thank you again for a great presentation. I had a similar question, actually. I was wondering, in these engagement processes, which stakeholders are actually representing their various countries? Are they primarily administrative or are they primarily political? And how do you kind of balance between those different perspectives in these kinds of processes? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other third question? Yes, there's one. Okay, yes. The first. Okay, good. Yes.
Oh, young people. Okay, thank you. I have a question for the Niger River Basin person. I know that due to the political situation in Niger currently, Nigeria decided to cut power to the population of Niger. So how can such a tool like the Water Convention help the people living, for instance, in Niger to cope with such a situation? Thank you.
It's me again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one more, but then we take some answers and then we can have...
Sorry. My name is Antoinette. I'm with SNV, international NGO. My question is, you've presented a range of tools. We are, in the world, we have a number of transboundary basins and transboundary basin organizations in different levels of maturity. And how do you see those different levels of maturity using these different tools, or which tools do you think are more suitable for some than for other, or better entry points?
Okay, thank you. I suggest we first take some, get some answers, and then we can make a second round. So, who wants to start? There was one question on how do we actually start? How do we start to build the relations where they do not exist yet in basins where there's no or only little cooperation yet? Does anybody want to answer?
I can say something.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe I can say something related to the first and the second question. I think that often the cooperation can start where I see the cases where actually there's a conflict. So when there is a conflict, there's more tension than there's an effort. But then if those obvious conflict doesn't exist, there might be difficult to have a motivation or like a driving forces of cooperation. But one of the ways that also well, I have seen at least to initiate the cooperation is to actually start the dialogue. This dialogue can be at the basin level, but there's also the regional dialogues, where we actually have this type of regional dialogue that we have conducted in the Southern Eastern Europe, as well as Southern Africa and Central America now, where not necessarily focus on the one basin, but to actually bring key stakeholders and practitioners and also civil society into one table and to start talking about different topics or general importance of cooperation or some of the issues that are facing the region, and then how those transboundary basin, better management of the basin could be addressed. So from those, some of the specific cooperation was initiated. So that could be one of the starting point. And I would say this can also be one way to engage the different types of stakeholders. Of course, that relates to the second question of the how different people can be engaged. So this multi-stakeholder dialogue and regional dialogues or basin level dialogues, this can be a really good entry point to start. And then I would say, often these corporations, the state, governments are the main sort of driving actors, but it can also, some of those corporations can start from some of the catalyzation of the civil society actors as well. So there's really no one fits all sizes approaches. There are different approaches that can be and entry points. I would just maybe stop here.
Thank you.
Sonia, may I add to these two first questions. In the case of the Gambia River Basin Organization, this OMVG that was actually founded 40 years ago by the ministries, and they still have the high steering body of this OMVG, still the ministries, the respective ministries of all the 4 countries. So it's a fairly robust organization. But as the colleague Antoinette from SNV also said, it's you find basins with no organization at all and others who have super strong institution. That's the reality. And I don't believe either that there is a one side or a quick fix or how we can build up. I think always the best thing is when these legitimate stakeholders get together, perfectly might start at the technical level and then it's carried on by the political level. And then it's then also this political buy-in that is super crucial for really making transboundary water cooperation a reality. Without that, but as outsiders, we have the opportunity to support such dynamics whenever we see it. We can also advocate for that, but let's not forget it's a sovereign question, and the countries have to get together by their own and not just pushed by us.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much for the questions. I'm actually just referring to the monitoring and assessment and the point that many basins are in a different level. And I would like to say that using these guidances, you can also, or the different basin organizations can start from a very basic level also, that doesn't need to have very fancy instruments. More important is to bring the data together and also to harmonize or compare the information. And I think also citizen science, and of course I also appreciate that the indigenous and local knowledge of the water flow and changes there is very important aspects as well. So there is not kind of a one starting point for all the monitoring and assessment areas, but I think they should start where it is possible and where there are information available. Information sharing, being open and transparent is very crucial there.
Okay, thank you very much. There was one question about Niger Basin and the current situation, and we're trying to connect to somebody who is online from that basin. Let's see if that... Okay. okay, while they are trying to fix it, I will take the authority of being here also to actually answer or provide some input from my perspective. Firstly, indeed, I mean, for example, I spoke early on that we also have a tool on climate change. And what happened there in 2009 or 10 was that in one specific basin, shared by 2 countries in a difficult basin, one of the riparian countries came to us and said, we want to apply this guidance, please help us. And they came to us as United Nations because they also see, obviously, the UN as an important actor. So we then reached out to the other riparian countries, and the two were not cooperating at all. So we reached out to the other country and asked if the other country would like to apply this tool together. And the initial response was quite lukewarm. So we organized the first workshop, and we started bringing together the scientists, basically, to develop joint modeling, joint climate change impact assessment, and brought also together civil society from the 2 countries. And then we started to do a trip along the river to actually see the situation on the ground. And later on, the other country also came on board, including on the authority. And later on, they started to actually negotiate a transboundary agreement. So here, indeed, one of the tools of the Water Convention was used upon the initiative of one country, and then later on the other country came on board. Then there was also a question about which tools are applicable in which situation. And certainly here there is also no one-size-fits-all, because it depends also on the challenges in each basin. In some basin there's a lot of nexus challenges. In other countries there is not even agreement yet, in which case then, for example, the practical guide for developing agreements can be very useful. Or when there are climate change and flood challenges. So it depends, I would say, on the situation in the basin. But actually, I think it was a very good question which you have raised. So I will try to take back this idea and see if we can actually make somehow a list, like a checklist, or where different basins can look which tools may be relevant for them depending on the challenges we face. So thank you for the idea. Because there's also innovation, that we need to listen to each other and learn from each other. And now I want to see if, does it work? No, it didn't work. Okay, so apparently we could not, we cannot yet connect the person from the Niger Basin. And maybe, there was also one question on how the Water Convention can help in the current situation in the Niger Basin, I mean, with regard to the energy. And that's a very difficult question, because obviously the Water Convention is more about water and not really about access to energy. Apart, I mean, we have this water food energy ecosystem nexus tool, which is also about providing energy to everybody. And obviously, we have the SDGs, including SDG 7, also on access to energy for everybody. But there's no specific, so to say. I mean, the Water Convention does not really talk about such situation like we currently have. So I would like to suggest to see there, because there were some more questions. Did you have one? And then we can take maybe 2 more.
Hello, I'm Rick Johnston from World Health Organization. Thanks to all the panelists for interesting presentations. I saw on several of the presentations the mention of gender and transboundary cooperation, and I wanted to ask for a little bit more elaboration of that. I mean, you can certainly envisage that WASH services, and especially water supply, could be improved through transboundary cooperation that might disproportionately benefit women. But apart from WASH, I'm sure there are other ways in which gender is important for transboundary cooperation, and I just wondered if you could explain what some of those are and maybe give some examples of how gender has been important in any of the examples that you've shared. Thanks.
Thank you. Was there any other question? Yes, up there. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is it on? Okay, thank you so much for all the presentations and this session. Very inspiring to see the tools and the opportunities that are there, examples given. Clearly funding is one of the challenges mentioned there. I was wondering the reference to like implementation of practices on the ground. Several examples were mentioned. Reference was made to this global network of basin organizations working on climate change adaptation. How can other basins maybe join that network for exchange? And what are ways to then collaborate to share some of the examples we implement in programs like we are currently implementing with the Niger Basin Authority, GIZ, and Wetlands International together? So what are best ways to share those practical examples on the ground here to mobilize further upscaling of funding? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other last question? Okay, you had already asked a question. I would like to see just if there's anybody else. If not, then we take that one. Doesn't seem to be. Do we have any online question, Eric? No? Okay, but then let's take it later. So, okay, one last question from you, and then we come back to the panel.
Yeah, thank you for letting me ask this last question. I noticed that in the training, one of you had in your presentation, the training that was made available, and I think 90% said they got value out of that particular training. I didn't see that. Maybe it was located somewhere else in terms of education, but I know that we deal with a lot of capacity divide in all different areas, technical, legal, and governance areas. How much time did you have to spend on building capacity so that the stakeholders could engage?
Thank you very much. So let's go back to the panel. There was one question about gender. And is there any panelist here? Maybe GWF does quite some work on gender.
Yeah, thank you very much. So in terms, when we look at the transboundary, also like decision-making sphere, I would say, at the transboundary water, it's in many places also, it's quite male-dominated. This is actually a reality in general in water sector. So the effort has been made to really build up the bottom-up, strengthen the capacity, as there was a question of capacity, but to really strengthen and also encourage the female leaders to be more engaged in this process. So, for instance, there are efforts that's made by the GWP Mediterranean Geneva Water Hub to work to create actually a network of women in water diplomacy network for MENA region, the Middle East and Northern Africa, where particularly in these regions, the positions of the women is not that easy to really get into that kind of positions and so on. So what they did like more or less a self-assessment and interviewing and doing some analysis of where they stand in terms of bringing their, inputting the gender aspect into the decision-making transboundary water in the different countries, and then how they can actually overcome that. Doing this as a network is really one way to strengthen, because often people feel alone in their own place. So this really itself, the network itself has empowered. There's also another network called Women in Water Diplomacy Beyond the Nile that was also been fostered by SIWI and some other partners. I think this is also having a similar impact. And I think another aspect that we are doing at the GWDP, particularly in Africa, is through really trying to then integrate this gender aspect more structurally. So when the water sector or the basin organization has its policy to mainstream gender, and then what does that mean? And then there is actually what we call gender action piece, like actually has a different steps of what you can do to integrate. So it can be all kinds of things, from having position, also what we call like a gender-based budgeting and so on. So I would say there are different tools available, and I think there's been an effort to really improve the situation. Should I answer the last one?
If you can.
Yes, and then while I have the mic, I would also touch upon your last question. I think you were referring to the slide that I showed, that 90% of the participants apply the skills. Well, for that training, the Pan-Africa training that we've conducted, it's a very focused, it's a 3-4 days, very short period of where we gather people. So we do need some level of education. So we do actually ask for, in their application, to make sure that they do have a certain level of education to be able to really pick up this topic. Also, the other criteria would be, of course, the people already working in the sector at the certain positions. So for that training was very specifically targeted for mainly the managers of the basin. But of course, there are other types of training, and the MOOC that we developed also, this is more open to a wider audience. And then I think it's a self-paced learning. We also have an interactive session where people can come and ask questions directly to experts. So there are different ways that we are also encouraging people to learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to react to the gender or any of the other questions? Sorry, let's just see here and then we go to you. Yeah. Do you do any?
If I may react to that, every investment decision is highly gender relevant, and particularly in these contexts. In such a master development plan of a basin, the pipeline that is defined is super gender sensitive. It might make a huge difference which projects are given priority over the others. And we have seen it in the film on Niger. Women typically do horticulture, small scale, and probably men do the larger things. So if irrigation projects favor the large-scale agriculture, then you have a bias towards men, and vice versa. So in that particular case, gender was really, we dug deep into that and at least made because the decisions were made by the people there, not by us, of course, not by UNCDF, who's leading that project. But we clearly advocated that the pipeline is balanced in a way that it rather favors women-sensitive investments over typical male activities.
Thank you very much. Just also to say that indeed, actually out of all the river basin organizations existing worldwide, there are only 2 or 3 which are headed by women. So that shows there is a lot to do. We have included this topic in the work program of the Water Convention. We have also included a question in the questionnaire on 652, as you could see, and we see that we don't even have the data. Many countries don't even provide the data on the gender situation in their transboundary cooperation. So there is still a lot to do, but now, and also I wanted quickly to answer the question from up there about joining the network. So any transboundary basins can join the network. They just have to fill out a form, which I'm happy to provide to you. Because currently we have 18 basins, but it's open for other transboundary basins to join. And how to provide best practices. I mean, that's always very much welcome. We will have a number of upcoming events, such as a workshop on financing transboundary water cooperation, a workshop on agreements, where we're always looking for good practices. So please just approach us from the Secretariat. And now back to the Niger Basin, and I hand over to Eric, who will read out the response received from the Niger Basin Authority.
Yeah, thank you. I will also quickly read a question we had as well on the Niger Basin Authority. It's been answered in the same reply. So there was a question on sharing how the Niger Basin Authority managed different sectoral needs for water. And Robert Kranefeld from GIZ has answered this and the question from the audience. So he's providing a first example on behalf of the Niger Basin Authority. He was the lead consultant for the work. The guideline suggests 2 assessments for project analysis supported by a GIS tool using a hydrological model of the basin. But in the end, the member states remain sovereign, and the more important aspect of the tool and guideline is to foster dialogues between the countries as solutions remain political. On the political situation and energy situation, it's tricky and actually goes beyond transboundary management. What can be said that despite all political challenges, the Niger Basin Authority member states were and are still able to cooperate on a technical level. So long-term trust between member states helped in the past to mitigate political difficulties, but time needs to prove how it will help with the current situation. Thanks, Robert.
Okay, thank you very much. And actually, we are already at the end of the session. So unless any of the other panelists would like to add something, I believe we need to come to a close. Thank you very much for your questions and all your contributions. And I hand over to Eric, who will make some conclusions.
All right. My name is Erik Salminen. I'm working as an Associate Environmental Affairs Officer at the Water Convention Secretariat. It's my pleasure to summarize and close this session. Indeed, it has been a great journey today. Colleagues have taken us from Okavango to Astana, from the Gambia to the Niger Basin, and it has nicely highlighted the global nature of the Water Convention. Thematically, we have covered an impressive number of topics from monitoring and assessment to policy making, allocation, negotiations, funding, and nexus work. You've witnessed several tools developed together and examples of their practical use. All of these tools are available online, many in different languages as well, and we have left some physically by the exit, so you can grab some when you're departing. We have learned that we need to use lessons learned and good practices from the ground to continue improving and innovating existing tools and creating new ones. As Simon said, we need to take risks, we need to further innovate to address new and emerging challenges, and based on the discussion, we need to ensure that all voices are heard, not just including the usual suspects. Finally, we need to bring together global frameworks such as the Water Convention and connect it with regional, national, basin level and local realities. The Water Convention provides a collaborative framework to address new trends and challenges in the world of water management and cooperation. This is also where I would like to touch briefly upon the theme of this year's World Water Week, which is innovation. As often we think of innovation having to have an invention of something new. But I think what this session has shown us is that we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. The Water Convention, thanks to its participatory and intergovernmental mechanisms, provides a flexible, collaborative platform for innovation and a way to respond to pressing needs and challenges together with experts from all around the world. For me, it encapsulates the great spirit of the water community, also present here in Stockholm. To continue on this trend, I would like to invite you to some upcoming events, which Sonia also already mentioned. We have a global workshop on conjunctive management of surface water and groundwater in Geneva, 16th and 17th of October. Right after that, we have a meeting of the Working Group on Monitoring and Assessment, also in Geneva. In November, we have a global workshop on developing agreements for transboundary cooperation. And in December, we have a global workshop on financing transboundary water cooperation and basin development, followed by the meeting of the task force on the water, food, energy ecosystems nexus. On this note, we also plan to start developing the new Water Convention program of work for 2025 to 2027 this fall, and invite all of you to contribute your ideas. A survey on this will be shared. Finally, I would like to thank our co-conveners, all of our speakers, our moderators, and of course, all of you participants, both here in person and online, who have made this session what it was. I wish for an exciting day and a week ahead. Thank you so much.